So welcome guys back to another video in the channel. We are doing our ideal Arsenal January transfer window, and this is the start of our Arsenal transfer news daily, and we'll be doing these videos, Arsenal transfer news dailies, every single day of the January transfer window starting from late December, which is this week. We'll be doing them every day except for match days, but if there is important information on match days, we'll be covering that as well. So make sure you stay tuned guys, because this promises to be quite an interesting transfer window for Arsenal as they try and rebuild their team following on from the half window we had in the summer. So let's get straight into the ideal Arsenal transfer window I wish to have. We are going to start off with the potential incomings. First of all, AOUAR. Now, we talked about him so much in the summer transfer window. For those of you guys who did follow my reports with AOUAR, we did get very close to signing him, but again, we just couldn't pay the money in the end, and then the player had a sort of change of heart, because Fabrizio Romano actually came out on a podcast a few weeks ago and suggested that we were ready, AOUAR was ready to join Arsenal in the early weeks of August, but what happened was Arsenal weren't ready to pay the money then. Arsenal were eventually ready to pay the money towards the end of the August, but then AOUAR had a sort of change of mind, thinking that maybe bigger clubs would come in for him in a year's time. So then Arsenal did kind of blow their chance on that one. They kind of bottled it, to be honest, with the AOUAR deal in the end. And obviously the day before the transfer deadline day, Arsenal did have a last bid rejected, as apparently they did have AOUAR did have a meeting with AOUAR, who is the president. Very hard to deal with, and we did bottle that deal in the end, and we couldn't get it over the line. The reports were suggesting that his agent, who is also his brother, was demanding £11 million as an agent fee, which is something that also put Arsenal off. On deadline day, it was a switch between either paying the money for AOUAR, which I don't know if we could have done anyway, because AOUAR didn't want to come, or do the release clause for Thomas Partey. In the end, we did do the release clause for Thomas Partey, but I think it could have been either or. Apparently Arteta wanted AOUAR more, but Edu and everyone else wanted Thomas Partey more, because I think it was an easy deal to do in terms of the overall package, because you know, the agent fees plus the actual fee with the add-ons and everything would have been more, but the initial fee, you know, in terms of the installments, would have been cheaper for AOUAR. So do we make a good decision in the summer or not? But we will be definitely going back in for him in January. Whether we do get this deal done is a matter of, I don't know. I'm not sure if he'll. I definitely think we'll go back in for him. We'll try to put a few bids in, but whether the player wants to move, it's a very difficult situation in that regard, because, you know, in a 6 months time, PSG, Juventus might line up bids. Even Real Madrid could be lining up a deal for AOUAR, who were all interested in him last summer. So maybe if AOUAR looks at that and says, maybe, you know, I've got Champions League, you know, contending teams like that coming after me, why would I want to go to Arsenal? So I think this January window is the last time for Arsenal to make a real push for AOUAR, try and sign him, and it'd be very difficult to sign him, I do think. And whether we will sign him, I'm not too sure, but it's someone we do really need to get over the line. 40-45 million pounds should be enough. All these values I have got for all of these players have come from Transfer Market on Google, so make sure you go check that out. But yeah, AOUAR is going to be my probably #1 target for this summer. We do need an attacking midfielder. I made a whole video on why he would improve our team next to Thomas Partey, and hopefully we do get this one over the line. Next one may come as a surprise or may not, and that is Edouard. Now again, he's a player that's not had the greatest of starts this season with Celtic, and with the valuation of £14 million on Transfer Market, it looks like Edouard could be on his way out in January in a cut price fee that Arsenal, you know, it's quite affordable for Arsenal. Now in terms of going forward, Arsenal haven't had any luck so far. You know, we've not scored enough goals. Aubameyang's not been on it, Lacazette's not been on it, so has Nketiah, you know, even though he's our top scorer this season with 5 goals. But again, that just shows you know, our front line hasn't been good enough, hasn't scored enough goals, which may, you know, go to the fact that we might look to try and improve in that area. Edouard was someone who scored 20 odd goals last season, and we did talk about him quite a few times in the summer transfer window. Apparently Arsenal did make a bid for him as well, a bid that I think did get rejected. It was like 18-20 million pounds, but with its valuation decreasing and with Celtic not doing as great, I think it might be a good time for Celtic to cash in on the player. Florian Balogun also is someone under Arsenal's recruit. I think we need to get rid of Nketiah and bring someone like Balogun in, just because Nketiah, I don't think he's working out. He ain't the player we need, and someone like Edouard can offer the rest of that pace, maybe a bit of physicality, maybe something that, you know, Giroud offered us, but again, we need to replace Giroud, and we haven't done that, to be honest. Lacazette hasn't been that player, Nketiah isn't that player, and it'll be very interesting to see if we can get Edouard over the line, because I think we do need a striker in this transfer window. Next one is Max Aarons. Now he is a right back at Norwich, someone who we did also talk about a few times in the the summer transfer window. We weren't linked to him extensively, but we did have a couple of links to him. Him and Buendia, also from Norwich. So we do need a right back. I don't think Arteta trusts AZ at right back enough, and I don't think he trusts Cedric that much either, because he keeps playing Hector Bellerin at right back. Obviously now ahead of the Southampton game, he is suspended, but obviously this is going to be released after the Southampton game, so I can't tell you much about that. But in consideration to Max Aarons, he's a brilliant right back. He was tracked by Barcelona and Bayern Munich all summer. Bayern Munich, I didn't go after him in the end, and Barcelona ended up going after Serginho Dest instead. But again, Max Aarons is a player who'd probably, if Arsenal did come in for him, he'd be a player that would probably force himself out of the club, because when you have Bayern and Barca linked to you and you're in the Championship, you probably want to get out of there and go back into the top leagues like the Premier League, where Max Aarons was last season. I think he can really improve our team. His style of play and what Mikel Arteta is trying to deploy could fit hand in hand. If Mikel Arteta is even here by the time the end of January, I'm not too sure. How much would it cost to do this deal? Well, his valuation is going up and up, but again, £20 million should be enough to do this deal. I think this is a deal in which Arsenal can force it through, in terms of that if Norwich, let's say, want 30 and Arsenal only willing to pay 20, I think Arsenal can get him for 20, just because Max Aarons will try and force through a move if Arsenal are the only club that go in for him. But if Bayern or something go in for him, then possibly a bidding war is something Arsenal don't want to be involved in. But it'll be very interesting to see if we do go after Max Aarons or any other right back in this window, considering we have 3 on our hands already. But do we get rid of Bellerin? I'll go into that in a bit. But I think Max Aarons is someone who will drastically improve our team, go in that right hand side, make us more stable, and going forward will really help us as well. So that's why I'm going to go with Max Aarons as a potential transfer target for us this January. The last potential incoming I will look at is Christian Eriksen. Now, along with AOUAR, I think we need one more midfielder that's really going to help us, and it has to be Premier League proven quality, and that's what Christian Eriksen brings us. At Tottenham, his value rose to around £90 million before he was allowed to go into his last year of his contract, and then 6 months left of it, Inter Milan decided to come in and steal him for around £20 million. Again, Eriksen is a player with a lot of quality in the Premier League, did really well with Tottenham Hotspur, and I think if we do some sort of deal with Inter Milan, whereas we give them Xhaka, I think that would be very good for us, because allow us to get Eriksen, someone who will give us the attacking flair, the box to box sort of thing, what he gave to Tottenham basically. A lot of quality in that midfield. If he's next to the likes of Thomas Partey, Houssem Aouar, I think that could be a very, very good midfield moving forward. That's something I want to see. Will we see it? I'm not too sure. Whether Arsenal do want Eriksen, whether Eriksen wants to move to a Tottenham rival, biggest Tottenham rivals, I'm not too sure, but it'd be very interesting to see. And someone like Eriksen would definitely add a lot of quality to our side, so why not go and sign him? Why not? And the Eriksen someone definitely I would want. But again, will we get it done? Will he want to come? It would be a very complicated deal between him and Xhaka, but if both parties want it, if all four parties want it, then I think it could happen. So Christian Eriksen, a possible deal for Arsenal, coming from Inter Milan, formerly of Tottenham Hotspur. Let's see if we can get this one done as well, but I'd love to see Eriksen back in the Premier League. So moving on to the players that we would want to get rid of in the January transfer window. First of all, starting off with Hector Bellerin. As I said, this is based off valuations from Transfer Market, but I think Bellerin's one is a bit too generous, isn't it? £28 million we could possibly get for Hector Bellerin, and he's a player that we desperately need to get out of this club, because he, people like him rot our club right back from the Wenger days. When's he had a full really good season, Bellerin? Like, when has he had that? He's had half good seasons, he's had a couple of brilliant games, but other than that, what's Bellerin actually done? And he's been horrific. His positioning is just bad. He's been anything but a footballer, pretty much. That pretty much sums up the last few months. Before this little tricky spell, he was alright, but again, now he's just rubbish. I don't want to see him anywhere near this Arsenal team, and if he does get near it, Arteta has to go. He has to go anyway. But obviously, the second part bit, Arsenal have drawn Southampton 1-1, so Bellerin wasn't playing in that, and we looked much better down that right hand side, but Holding didn't get exposed as much. So I think Hector Bellerin has to leave this football club, and it's better sooner than later, because his valuation will drop even further and more clubs will not want him. The next one is Socrates. Now, I feel bad for Socrates, I'll be honest with you, because when Ozil's been left out of squads, when Saliba's been left out of squads, them both are on social media, taking one out, enjoying life, like nothing's going on, taking a piss, making this club look even worse. What Saliba did obviously with Guendouzi, as you all know, and then as we know, he's basically become a Twitter account. But yeah, Socrates, he's a player, he's just kept his head down and he's just played in the under-23s, brought a bit of experience into the under-23s, and has just, you know, just done his job there, and that's all he's done, to be honest. And fair play to him, to be honest. He was on his way to Napoli, but Napoli couldn't get rid of Kalidou Koulibaly. His valuation is at £5 million around about. He is into his last 6 months left, so I think either he agrees a pre-contract agreement or he goes for a free deal now and we let him go. So it'll be very interesting to see what we do with him. But he is one player that we have to get rid of. But he's probably the most professional out of all these players that need to go, to be honest. But let's move on to the next one, and that is Rob Holding. Now, again, he's a player that at the start, you know, a few years ago when he first came in, he looked like a real good prospect. We brought him in for £2 million from Bolton, and he looked like a really good player, to be honest, and a player that was really good in the early Emery era, and we went on that 22 unbeaten run. Then he got that ACL, and then things were a bit tough for him, and ever since he's just not looked that same player, that same consistent player. Yes, that's got to do something with Bellerin obviously not being you know, Bellerin being Bellerin, basically being positionally out. Holding keeps getting exposed, but I think he's someone we do need to let go of in January. We've got a lot of centre-backs, and I think if Arteta were to go before January window, I think some manager would get rid of Holding and put Saliba into his position where he's playing now. His valuation is around £9 million. I think we could get a bit more than that. I think £15 million would be fair for Rob Holding, but I think any money we do get for Rob Holding will be a profit, as we only did get him for £2 million. So trying to get the most of that will be very important, but I think Holding is one player that we have to let go of. Next one is Godren Mustafi. He hasn't played much of a role this season. Last season he was quite influential for Mikel Arteta, but this season he's just not played. He's played in the Europa League games, and I think he's done an alright job in the Europa League, being that experienced head amongst, you know, quite young players in the, you know, European games. So I think Mustafi in that sense has done really well for us, but he's not a Premier League quality player for us, and he won't be. His valuations are around £10-11 million. Lazio did come in for him in the summer. I think they couldn't agree personal terms because we did agree a fee. Same thing would happen with Kolasinac. We'll get onto him though. But yeah, Mustafi, he has to go. I think he has no future left for the club. Again, 6 months left. Hopefully we do get rid of Mustafi. Kolasinac is the next one. Again, a player that we did try look to get rid of. We agreed a fee with Bayer Leverkusen for £11 or £12 million. Yeah, £11 or £12 million, and they just couldn't agree personal terms with Bayer Leverkusen, and that ended up didn't happening. But again, Kolasinac is a player who's played for us in the Europa League, done alright for us in the Europa League. He's not been exceptional, not been that bad either. I think that sort of level for Europa League, the sort of group sort of teams we did play in the Europa League, I think that's kind of his level, isn't it? So Kolasinac obviously is a player we need to get rid of. Don't want to see him anywhere near the Premier League team. I think Arteta's established that himself, and his valuation is around £9 to £10 million. But I think even if we just get him off the wage book, he'll be good because he isn't quite a lot of money. The next one is the fraudster himself, Mr. Fortnite player, Mr. number 10, Mesut Ozil. His valuation is actually £8 million. £8 million. That's a lot of money for someone who just sits at home and plays Fortnite. But yeah, Ozil needs to go. Full stop. Some clubs are interested. American clubs are interested, and some Qatari clubs, some Saudi clubs, and I'm pretty sure Fenerbahce are lining up a deal as well. Their president said 90% sure he'd probably come to them in January. So if you can get him off the wage book, that would be very nice indeed. The next one is Granit Xhaka. Now, all of the players that we could potentially, like, more realistically get rid of, he's probably the one that could give us the highest valuation, which is £25 to £30 million. Now, again, I don't think we're going to get that kind of money for him. No team's really going to pay £20 to £30 million, you know, in this sort of climate, in, you know, a January window for a player that's playing not that well. I think Inter Milan want him. Now, this is interesting because a potential target we saw was Christian Eriksen. Now, Christian Eriksen, Xhaka swap deal. I will be covering this in my Arsenal Transfer News dailies in the future, so make sure to look out for that. But you know, this is a deal that I think could possibly happen, and it will be interesting to see how this one progresses. But Xhaka is a player we definitely need to get out of the door. The reasons for it, obviously, is just this ill discipline. I don't want to get into all this now because we could be here for a few hours. But yeah, Xhaka needs to leave. Next one is Alex Lacazette. I think he's been given a lot of opportunities over the last few years. Again, another Wenger player and another player we really do need to get rid of. His valuation on transfer markets 38 to 40 million pounds, which is actually quite a lot of money, I'll be honest, for a player that just doesn't score a lot of goals, don't seem bothered in most games. But I think some league like the Spanish league or maybe the French league where he came from would be much better suited to him, maybe a bit more slower for him, a bit better for him. Same thing applies for Xhaka, but hopefully a club does come in for him. I'm pretty sure Roma came in for him in the window, but we didn't let him go. It looks like Arteta wanted to keep him. In the summer I was like, we keep him, we not keep him. I'm not too minded on it because I think he was the player, you know, who did so well for us in the 18-19 season, but since then he just hasn't looked the same player. So Alex Lacazette will be one I would get rid of. Second last one would be Willian. Now Willian is a player, again, he's just not been good enough, and I'd rather Reece Nelson get a chance, and Real Betis have been interested in the player. Edu has come out and said that he's a player that's going to take time, but again, he's been in the Premier League. He doesn't need that much adaptation, does he? But even Willian has said he's struggling with Arteta's tactics, but it'd be interesting. Transfer market have rated him at 17 million pounds, but I think it's one of those, if we get a small transfer fee, get him off the wage book, it's just good. You know, bin him after 6 months. Other teams have done it. Why can't we do it? Why do we have to keep a player on for that long? Next one is Eddie Nketiah. 18 million pounds, but I just don't think he's that good, to be honest. I don't rate him that much. He's got a lot of chances under Mikel Arteta to prove himself, and I think it's time for move on. Bring someone like Edouard in or give Balogun a chance, and I think it'll be much better for us. 18 to 20 million pounds is what transfer market is rating him at. I think if a club were really interested in him, we could get up to 25 million pounds, honestly. But maybe quite an interesting one. Maybe a swap deal on Nketiah for Edouard, possibly something we could look at in the window. I don't think we would, because Arteta likes Eddie a lot, and when Arteta likes the player, he don't really get rid of the player. So yeah, it's quite predictable with him, isn't it? But Eddie Nketiah as a player I would get rid of and move on, because I think we need to just move some of these players on and start afresh, and that's how we're going to move forward. So yeah, that is it for my outgoings and incomings potential. Ideal Arsenal January transfer window. Do you agree with all of these? Do you not agree with all of these? Would you change any players I would sign? Any I wouldn't? What other positions would you target in the window? I'm not expecting us to do a lot, but again, Edu says that we're going to try and go for a creative midfielder. Fabrizio Romano has said we'll go after we'll have a special window, so we'll have to see what happens. It will be all covered on this channel, so make sure you have hit the bell, and if you haven't already, subscribe. See you guys in the next one. Bye bye.